You know who's a good example for us at work? Jesus. Yes, that Jesus. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a believer of any kind. Jesus wore his heart on his sleeve. And that's something we need to do more of at work. But wait, aren't we supposed to check our emotions at the office door? Isn't being emotional a liability as a leader? Well, the guy who inspired the world's largest religion may beg to differ. He lived in his emotions. He felt angry, sad, joyful, disappointed, compassionate, betrayed. And he shared those feelings with his disciples, his father, even with his enemies. Jesus lived fully. And if we want to make a difference in the world with the work we do, we should do the same. This all-in approach to living is something Jonas Bergvall has been studying for a while. Jonas is a creative soul with experience in branding, gaming, and as an entrepreneur. He wrote a book called How the World Feels that explores the idea that life is emotionally constructed. Every room, situation, experience has its own emotional world. And we connect to that world through our own emotions, even when we think we're being 100% logical. So what emotional worlds are we creating in our workplaces? Ones that invite people in to live and contribute fully, or ones that shut folks down? If you're not sure, just ask a simple question. What would Jesus do? Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Jonas. Okay, Jonas Bergvall, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Hello, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jonas. I know I got connected to you through Paul McFarlane, who's been on this show a couple of times, and we chatted before, and it was a delightful conversation. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, Paul is a very good friend, and we have been working on and off for many years. So
that's
very
awesome.
Grateful, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'd love to give you a chance to talk a little bit about what you do for work, and maybe a little bit about how you try to desuckify the world with the work you do.
Mm-hmm. Unsuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Looking forward. Let's.
Yeah. So what kind of work are you doing these days?
Right now, I'm doing what I call home adventures.
Okay.
It came from that my brother and I, we really like doing escape rooms. But I thought that it was rather expensive. So why don't we do it ourselves? We started doing that. And then I started playing along, create our own sort of adventures. And that led to a new thing that I try to create, to help people create adventures in their own homes, basically.
Wow. That's really wild. I haven't heard of that. I don't know if anyone's doing that over here in the States, but it's very cool. And you've had kind of a creative career, right? You've worked in creative spaces most of your career?
Yeah, mostly in brand strategy, communication, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Tech startups.
Yeah.
On and off in different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And all around the place, really. And
okay.
So I'm grateful.
What was your favorite? Favorite work, favorite job, favorite moment?
I always try to see the current thing as my favorite, but a bit more seriously, I always thought that the most interesting parts is that when you were sort of not struggling, but when you're trying hard, and always obviously trying something new, meeting new people, and not obviously to create stuff. I love creativity and love results in the sense that is, something you can touch, something you can feel, something you can see, watch, all that.
Yeah, I think that's a good insight. I think a lot of people, particularly those who work in spaces like marketing, brand, creative, there is something about working really hard and feeling that struggle and feeling the pain of it a little bit, and then getting to be like, wow, here's this thing I made, and wasn't that worth it? Yeah.
Mom, look what I did, as the
Yeah,
Nobel
yeah.
Prize winner said.
Yeah, and I think, when I think about some of the struggles some folks are having in work these days, and I coach some folks who are in corporate jobs, the more their job doesn't offer that, meaning it's just sort of moving stuff along, but there's no result, no thing that you can point to. I think people can get a bit down on that because they're working hard, right? And they're probably
Absolutely.
spending long hours, but there is no moment of exhale, celebration. We did it. Yeah, look, Mom, look what I did. And I wonder if more jobs need that.
Have you read, I think it's called Vita Contemplativa, or the Condition of Life, or something like that, by Hannah Arendt?
I haven't. No. What's the story there?
So that book stuck with me. It's a hard read for me.
Yeah.
But it's super interesting. And what I think the gist of it is that we have to try to see the different, that work is not the same as a job, and a job is not the same as a competition. But so she divides, generally speaking, she criticizes modernity for coming from a time where people could see the results of their own work. So if you're a carpenter or a handyman of some sort, then you can touch and feel what you did.
Yeah.
And she pointed to the fact that modernity brought, and the industrialization brought with it that we no longer, like Marx called it, alienation, right? That we no longer can see the results of our labor, rather than work. So she separates work and labor.
That's interesting.
And then she also have a third thing, which is sort of what she calls action, which is also a different thing. So work and labor and action. And action is something that we do in this world in order to make it better, or make a change, improve it, think harder, whatever we do, some kind of action. And I think, since we're sort of now locked into, or have been at least, locked into the labor part, where the old work, the Homo faber, I think she calls it, with you can see the results of your own work, and we're also not included in sort of the development of the world.
Yeah.
So we're sort of stuck there. So we have an industrialized sort of mind or body, but we're asked to behave in a different way, like as if everything we do matter, or that. But so
that's
a good
fascinating
book.
It's an interesting observation, right? I mean, I think it may be why there's been a push in recent years to find more purpose in work, because I think that disconnect, if you're, a craftsperson and you make a thing, like, well, your purpose is making the best version of that thing. You can feel very connected to it. Even if you were a farmer back in the day, you're very connected to it. My purpose is to, grow these crops and feed my family, and then maybe feed the neighbors, right? And now we're so removed, right? The corporate entity rarely involves most of us in whatever the purpose may be, if there is a clear one, that we're craving it now. We're like, well, how do I connect myself to the thing I do 8, 9, 10 hours a day? And I think that's a big struggle for companies. I think
it's a huge struggle.
The desire for that is so innate in us that the companies who don't do a good job of helping people see, like, here's the value you're bringing, here's why it matters. And then as a person, I get to decide if I care about that. If we don't do that, there is like a soul deadening. I don't want to say maybe fully dead, but it does sort of just quiet it in a way. Yeah. I mean, what What do you see? I mean, do you see a way to engage us in our work again? Does it require radical change, or is it something that can be done at a smaller scale?
First, I think that if you sort of, I think his name is John Bervacki or something like that. He pointed to a meaning crisis. I think I have hear echoes of that.
Yeah.
Sort of point that we don't feel as much meaning with what we do because we're stuck in labor rather than work, where we can see the results and meaning of also the benefit we create and the value we create for other people. So yeah, I think that is true. Maybe that narrative, though, is can be poked around with it a little.
Yeah.
Because I did a piece of research where something that I draw from that was how much of what is deemed with the word competence is actually some kind of style.
Okay.
And so I think so. If we take meritocracy, the sort of this whole idea that the Western world was built upon the last 100 years or so, at least, that the right person in the right spot in society.
Yeah.
So if you study hard, you get a good job and appraisal.
Yeah.
But I think that didn't ever work really.
Yeah.
And something that stuck with me from a philosopher called Alain de Botton. He said that he brought up meritocracy and the fact that it brought with it the crazy idea that if we have a hierarchy which basically what the meritocracy is, the people at the top deserve their position, which means that the people at the bottom also deserve their position. And I think and he argues that creates a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And I agree. And I think that it's something with that meritocracy where if you bring in the idea of theater and style into the equation. I remember another piece of research where they researched air stewardess, people on airplanes, the staff on airplanes. And so because they took them as a clear-cut example of someone who has to be bodily available in a cramped up space, looks sexy often, and also wear makeup, and you have to sound and behave in a certain way. So it's a style. So it's can you play the part? And I think the less essence we get in society from that, it's difficult now to separate what you know from what I know from what he knows or from she knows. Is like, oh, is anything better than anything else? And it kind of becomes a theater, it becomes a play, and it becomes a scripted sort of surface and surface before essence. And I think that something there, which is, I feel is
I mean, I certainly see it. I felt it probably myself at times, but I certainly see it in people who definitely feel like they're playing a role, which again, I think creates some of that disconnect with our core, whether you call it your soul, whatever, but your essence, you use that word. And I think that's like, it's not an easy thing to solve, right? Because at some level it's systemic. But I also think in my own career, I felt that at times, but I didn't feel that at other times. So something shifts at times where you can feel more fully present in your work. You know, what do you think it is? Like when we do feel more connected to our essence, we don't feel like we're just playing a role, affecting a style.
It doesn't feel like a lie.
Yeah. What is that? Like what is needed for that to be true?
One thing, I wrote a book last year.
Oh.
called How the World Feels.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise of the book is sort of I approach sort of the whole thing that if, let's say that we cannot really separate the way we understand and approach the world from our emotions, that we cannot cut them out. They are always present.
Yeah.
And which means that you could almost say that rationality doesn't exist. Rationality is an emotion, a feeling. So from that starting point, I sort of not that rationality and logic is a bad thing, but just that if we see it from an emotional perspective, things start to emerge that is really interesting.
Yeah.
And not least that so many aspects of ourselves, but is not part of the process. But in this case, I try to move out emotions out of our bodies and sort of more see part of the world, like the sky is blue, and that is an emotion. And you are there, and that's an emotion. Why I bring that up is because what is missing, I think, is that we seem to disregard that or pretend a lot of times that this is not the case, that we're sort of supposed to be calm and collected and quite a narrowed.
Oh yeah.
Even I mean, you take all these sort of centered stuff and all the calm and boom. Everything is all about narrowing things down.
Yeah.
And rather than all these constantly changing colors, I swear is never me. But from further back, I see the grand painting.
Yeah. That's a really
great piece of lyrics from a song.
What song is that from?
It's by Michael Sweet from Striper.
Nice. That's a good callback. Wow. I love this perspective that everything is sort of born from emotion and everything almost is emotion. I mean, the concept of rationality, and I think, you talked about meritocracy, and in many ways, meritocracy is this natural output of an Enlightenment rationality-based way of looking at the world. So,
exactly.
And I don't even necessarily think, like you said, like that's all bad. But I think when you shift it to say rationality and all of that is rooted in an emotion, and my initial reaction is feeling safe, feeling calm, feeling, protected in some way. Rationality seems to do that, at least for me. There's something.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that desire for control.
It's containment.
Yeah. But to see that through the lens of the emotion and the need for that at times, and I don't want to dismiss that need. There are times when we need that. There are times when we need this, right? But it's not life, right? It is this slice of life, to your point, all of these beautiful colors and all of these ways of feeling. I think when we talked last, this idea of, what is a life well lived, it's like, I don't think it's to be contained to a narrow set of emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
I think most people want to feel as much as we can feel. It's one of the greatest gifts we have as sentient beings is to feel. And so when you bring that into the workplace, and I would say there's been a concerted effort to remove emotion from the workplace for most of the Industrial Revolution.
For sure.
Unless
it has a smile,
with
the name Colgate on it, but always certain feelings.
Yes,
pinpointed.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And also in different rooms, because in the boardroom you can't go. That would be crazy, but on the street, if you're a street magician, then you can go for some reason.
Yeah.
And so that has different places, and that's where this style comes in, because of what I did at the time was I'd researched different industries, and try to understand what people did to sort of not necessarily fit in, but I would rather see it as a way to define the boundaries of this is the way we should behave and sound like, think even within this particular context.
Yeah.
And when I started to poke around in that, I realized that it could be from one room to the other. Sort of, you're supposed to sound like this in this room. You open the door, walk into the next room. Oh, you're supposed to sound differently.
Yeah.
which is crazy. This is sort of
It
weird.
is. It's crazy, and yet I sort of understand it. Meaning, I mean, there's all these variables at play and all these emotions that we're feeling in those different contexts. So it makes sense. I mean, you're touching on something that I've been thinking about a little bit, which is, you know, what is a good or healthy work culture, right? And through the lens that you're describing here, I think, okay, you know, how do you create a culture where people can show up and bring as much of the variations within themselves, where there's room to go, and then there's room to go like whatever else we can do. Like, how do you do that? And, you know, if you're leading a company, how do you feel like, I want to say safe in that, like, because it can feel a little bit like I'm opening the door to complete chaos, and that scares me. If I invite sort of full expression, you know, what do you think might be a healthy way to navigate some of those issues?
It's hard, first of all, and there's no sort of clear-cut answer and solution to that, I think. But I remember a project that I did where sort of it was a organizational development project where the starting point was very easy. It was like, the only thing we are going to do in this project, it cost a lot of money. It was, and plenty of people involved, but let's narrow down the premise to how can we increase our capacity to listen and understand other people? And that is obviously much more difficult than it seems for some reason. But in so many situations where if you take the polarization going on in the world, not only politically, but in any kind of way, really, that I think that we have we're morally lost in the sense that we have exchanged the capacity to make a moral judgment with being stubborn and stern and rigid. And that has plenty of different reasons, I guess. But this whole, we don't talk about morality much in the sense that, other than a standing point, that is something I protect, something that is important.
I have this belief, and if you don't have it, I judge you.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
And we lack tools, really, to how do we approach each other when we don't agree? How do we do that respectfully? And how do we make different points without feeling like I run a risk of shame or running a risk of being wrong? So it becomes more of a game where it's better to get right than be right.
Yeah. I mean, there's the feeling of rightness that we can have about our point of view, and then there is what actually is, you know, whether that's from a moral perspective or if you're in the workplace, and it's like, what is the right path forward? And we can get very protective of, well, this was my idea, so it's right. And then somebody else is doing the same thing, or this department is better than that department, or this team is better than that team. What do you think might help? You talked about tools to sort of engage in that and try to maybe move past the initial restriction we feel around holding on to our rightness. What are the tools that that open the door to actual, like, real collaboration, real communication, not acting.
There is no shortcut, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My suggestion, though, where I am right now, it is about emotional variety, and agree that most of us, at least, I can't speak for everyone, but most of us have a very wide range of feelings.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but that's a starting point for accepting who we are as human beings. And sometimes it feels like tools is something that kind of push that away, externalize. How can we fix it?
Yeah. How do we contain those emotions? Or yeah. The tool is more of a way of being than a 3-step process, right? It's
exactly.
It seems like we need to have a level of, I think, first acceptance and then something bigger and stronger than that, maybe comfort. I'm not sure what the word is, with emotions, our emotions and the emotions of others. And, I'll give you an example for me. I am not very comfortable with anger from other people.
Yeah.
I hear it and I immediately go like this. I'm like, I don't want to hear it. But it also then brings out anger in me, right? Because I'm trying to put it back in the box, and I'm thinking I'll just shout it back in the box, right? And I'm aware that there is probably a way that might serve me better to be with that emotion. And I think we all have certain emotions that probably are more triggering for us than others. But we just don't know how to be with them. We don't know how to feel them ourselves. We don't know how to be around somebody else who's feeling them.
And it's also fair to say that we inherited a lot of these patterns.
Sure.
So there is some, for example, I read somewhere that upper class people, I'm not sure exactly where, but take it as a general sort of idea, tend to control their children's emotions and emotional expression. Working class people tend to control their kids' bodies. Don't do that. Don't climb down. No. Or you better not do that.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
As an example of how we have so many thought models, feeling models of how we're supposed to feel in certain, and express our feelings, not least in certain situations.
Yeah,
and and there's a lot of shame involved, and so unfortunately those manage to shove all that down and sort of disregard it seem to have climbed to the top.
Hi everyone, thanks for listening. If you're liking what you hear and like the idea of making work not suck, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. What would make your work culture more human? Let's talk about it. All right, back to the show. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because they will often climb to the top, but I think what you often see is that certain emotions are very visible in those at the top. I mean, there's a study, it's sort of a crazy study, but sort of the relative percentage of psychopathic behavior of folks who are at the very top is high. I think aggressiveness is probably high. So there's certain emotions that become either okay or something.
The style.
Yeah.
The style, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like, that's what a leader looks like. That is what it looks like to be a CEO. You have to be kind of a jerk, and you have to be really hard on people. I think it's shifting, at least in terms of what people want. and our conversation has broadened, and you're certainly seeing examples more now of folks who step into those positions and are at least trying to do it differently. But I think,
but we also have got a lot of ping pong tables and bean puffs and all that kind of stuff,
right,
as a
the trappings of culture.
Now we're creative. Now we're fun. No, welcome.
Right. As opposed to what kind of working environment do we actually want to foster so that people can be more creative? And,
yeah, exactly.
And I think, to your point, some of that means, how do we invite more emotional expression? How can we be okay with that? How do we sit with that? How do we deal with it? I mean, it's a form of emotional intelligence, although when I hear you talk about it, the distinction I hear between sort of classic emotional intelligence and what you're describing is, sometimes in the language of emotional intelligence, there is still that, like, how do you control your emotions? And there's a piece of that makes sense. We don't want to just be screaming at each other all the time or whatever, or crying all of the time.
Absolutely.
There needs to be some ability to exist with each other, but the language is still a little bit from that rationality mindset, as opposed to starting from a place of everything is emotion. Now what?
I had a sort of a love-hate relationship with Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism. Yeah. And I think emotional intelligence have some kind of echo.
Yeah, I feel that.
Stoicism has become very popular, and it's absolutely a lovely idea that sort of like the serenity prayer that we let go of stuff we cannot change and pray to God that we can know the difference.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but if that comes with an ideal of containment, then there is a danger in that.
Yeah,
because there's always a risk that we feel shame when entering rooms and not expressing that particular kind of flavor of emotions that we're supposed to express in that space. And that also comes back to sort of a long tradition of the neoliberal idea from the invention of psychology from 100 years ago, more or less, that and married with the Chicago school and became sort of neoliberalism and this whole sort of individualized aspect of even emotions. And that's why I wanted to move out emotions from myself and see that we share rooms of emotions, and that makes it much more interesting, I think, because that way we can give each other stuff and share. And
yeah, I mean, I want to come back to that thought because I think you're starting to touch on this idea of emotions constructing our reality. Before we do that, though, you talked about Stoicism and going back to the Romans, and I want to go back to someone else. And when we talked previously, you mentioned Jesus as an interesting example of an emotional being. What do you notice with Jesus in terms of how he shows up and how he dealt with his emotional reality?
So what I did was with this book is that I used AI to collect and document stuff I recognized from here and there. Actually, started off with a song which my dad sang to me when I was a kid. And I started it all with having a conversation with Dad about it. And I've realized that although we have a great relationship, but I put emotions at the heart of it, made quite a difference, because we could talk. We're moving out emotions in the room as well, not I feel, you feel, rather than that made a difference because we could talk about emotions in a less sort of sensitive way.
Right.
And so this It was a song that he sang for me when I was a kid, and it was about a tramp that walked down the street, and he found some dynamite and put it into a pipe and exploded, and he died.
Well, okay.
So the funny part, although which saved it more or less, was that he was put in a casket, in a coffin, and his toes stuck out. that was the ending of the song. and I wanted to come back to that. Why did you sing that to me? I mean, it's like a weird song to sing to a kid.
Yeah.
And he remembered he heard it he heard it from his friends when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And he apparently famous, but when somebody made it famous on the radio in the late 40s.
Okay.
Maybe he has American origins. Many of these songs do, actually.
Yeah. We do have a lot of those crazy kid songs and tales that are dark. Yeah.
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 But it was a sort of doesn't exercise in this is the way you as a child is supposed to feel around violence and threat and death. So it was very much the way I see it now, as a sort of a working class sort of learning that this is life is tough, young boy.
Yeah.
And there may be some tough shit coming and you might die, but at the end, who cares? Sort of thing.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah.
And so I fed the AI with all these different ideas, and during the process, and by doing that, I could put new experiences, and new texts, and new ideas into it, and it grew and grew and grew and grew. So that we became just as well versed in the theory as me, sort of thing. And at some point, I said, let's throw in the Bible.
Of course.
And so I did an emotional orientation theory analysis on the Bible. And so I tried different figures in the Bible, and then I realized this figure, Jesus. I said, okay, so he cried, he screamed, he was angry, he was friendly with the most vulnerable. He honored women. He's sort of very emotionally expressive guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, totally contrary to the sort of, the Lutheran sort of modern or whatever version of Christ.
It's really interesting, actually, how we've, in many instances, done the same thing with Jesus that we do with ourselves and each other, which is
exactly
put him in a narrow
in a box. Yeah. And so that was a revelation, or sort of of an eye opener, where if the world, the Christian world, saw that person, or rather that emotional regime, that space, the expressive, then control and containment and shame about our sins and yada yada, that would have less of a space, and we would be more alive.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? If you think about the various, I mean, there's so many expressions of Christianity, right?
Sorry, I'm kind of open.
There's so many expressions, right? And you mentioned sort of the Lutheran, which is maybe a little, even-handed, and then there's a scale to very charismatic churches, and I think to the extent
you're right, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
If you've connected back to sort of Western culture more broadly, I would say, to the extent that Western culture, has, it's defined by the Enlightenment, and then there is this layer, certainly in America, maybe other parts as well, that there is definitely a layer of Judeo-Christian sort of belief around that. I think it leans more towards the more calm version, the more contained version, as opposed to the more emotionally expressive, emotionally alive version. And it would just be it's just an interesting conversation to go, what does a society, a Western society, look like if it starts to embrace the more dynamic version of Jesus? I mean, that's just a really, like, whether you believe the religious parts of it, I don't think even matters. It's more from a cultural standpoint. There's obvious influence from his life that shows up here, and it would be really interesting. And not that I would bring this into a work setting and say, let's follow Jesus, because I think that could be controversial, but yet as a story, I think it might be really interesting.
Exactly.
You know?
No, it does. It has nothing to do with belief, really,
right.
or religion. Even it's more of a cultural heritage.
Yeah.
That we have to acknowledge. That
right. It's in the room.
It's in the room.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned this idea of EOT. It's emotional. What's the O stand for again?
Orientation
theory. Can you describe that just briefly? I feel like we're touching at it, but what's the sort of definition of it?
Well, that the world has emotional qualities, like we talked about before. So that one room can have one emotional orientation towards control, containment, anger, whatever, and another room can be totally different.
Yeah.
And which is weird in the sense that I can go from one room to the other while my personality didn't change.
Yeah.
But the rooms changed. And I can feel very different in these rooms.
Yeah.
And the rooms gives feedback in different ways.
Yeah.
In emotional qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And so one home can feel very brittle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That if you say something wrong, there is an immediate sort of fear or something going on. But while another home can be sort of sticky, almost like you're with emotions, that it's too much. It's like you're swimming in honey. And still, nothing's changing me. It's not my emotions. It's something else. There's sort of an emotional orientation of the world, of the space.
It's interesting, right? Because I can scale that, right, from how it feels in my house to how it feels at a neighborhood coffee shop to how it feels in an office to how it feels in a city, a state, a country, the world, under certain political conditions. I mean, it's wild.
And not only in me, it's more like a relationship between me and you and walls and windows and it's more in between.
It's funny as you describe it. I think about the word vibes. I think that the word vibes is an interesting one here because I think I've always thought of culture two pieces. Values. What are the values in a company or a society? And then vibes. What is the feeling? And it's hard to quantify that, but I think you're getting to it here with this EOT description, because that's what we feel in a room, in a space, in a company, in an organization. It's like I've walked into places and with almost immediately been like, I'm home. Like whatever that energy is emotionally here, I am fueled by it. And then I've walked into other spaces, workspaces, where it's oppressive to me, and it may not be oppressive to somebody else. And this is that interrelation part, right? My sort of emotional vibration or whatever meets a space, and it either sort of works or it doesn't. That feels like sometimes when people don't feel connected to a culture, they're experiencing some version of that. And I'm curious, is that simply a thing we should pay attention to and then say, this isn't the space for me? Or is it more, what can I do to be more open to the different culture, the emotional vibrations within spaces?
I think that's sort of the, maybe turn that on its head. That we will live by sort of the who was it? The don't ask what you can do for your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country, and sort of that individualize sort of how can I change, adapt, be proper, fit in, have the right style.
Yeah.
Maybe, and maybe we should think about it differently, that it's maybe we should help each other rather to figure that out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It makes me wonder, like, something in just simply acknowledging the reality of this, meaning if you walk into a space and you notice something that just doesn't quite fit for you, to kind of, to the extent that organizations can create room for conversations around, hey, as we're inviting people in, they're noticing something about the emotional energy in our space. Like, how can we work together on that to create something that we all want? And it might be that it's already where they want and this person doesn't fit, but it also may be that kind of happened over time and we haven't been noticing it because we're like the frog in the boiling water. We just don't realize it. So, this simple acknowledgement that there is emotion and there is this sort of vibration in the room is probably a good place to start. Because, when I hear it, I think I've never really had this conversation. I think I felt it in some way, but never like the honest recognition of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that simple statement, it would be not enough, but it would be a good starting point.
It would be like a little bit of a weight off for everybody to be like, oh, finally somebody just acknowledged it. Now we can talk about it. And it's not about necessarily fixing it, but just noticing for a little bit. Yeah, what's here? I wanted to touch on one thing just because it's kind of how we got brought together. When Paul, mentioned you to me, he shared a piece he wrote, and the concept you discuss in it is called ridiculous dignity. In some ways, it feels like parts of what we've talked about are maybe wrapped in that, but I'd love to just hear you explain that because I just love the term. What does ridiculous dignity mean, and how do you see it showing up, or how could it show up?
It came from because the Eurovision Song Contest was conducted. What is it? 2 months ago?
Something like that. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
A while back. As a European, I have a sort of, as many of us do, we have a sort of love-hate relationship to this a European Song Contest because it's super goofy on the one hand.
Yeah.
And on the other, it's so beautiful that because we have in Europe, as you know, it's a diverse entity with many different languages, and then we can come together, be in this contest and sort of be ridiculously honest about who we are or could be, maybe not, also, and still find it dignifying. And it came from, so one piece of the puzzle was an old Adam and the Ants song from 1980, some 82 maybe. It was called Prince Charming. And I loved it as a kid. And he sings, ridicule is nothing to be scared of. Because Prince Charming is above that sort of thing. And it also has it actually it has become, I should say, over the past 10 years or so, sort of the European Song Contest has become sort of a gay community sort of thing, which is, I find, lovely. Kind of own it, go with it. On the one hand, on the other hand, it's also runs the risk of becoming narrowing the allowed expression as well. So let's all be a little bit less afraid of ridicule. So maybe.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I mean, and I do think it connects to a lot of what we're talking about, the rationality, the enlightenment mindset that I think leaves very little room for that. But I think it's interesting when you think about, even when that's been sort of the guiding principle in a society, Western society, I look at the US, for example, and I think, look at all of the reality TV shows that have come up, here, and I'm sure there too.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous, and they're trashy, and they're all these things, but they're also just like, I think it's like it's escape valves for the reality that we are emotional creatures who do like to be ridiculous at times, who do like to just express ourselves in a big way and have fun and be stupid and not feel the pressure of be in that box all the time. It seems like a natural thing. And so to the extent that we can honor that and invite that in all areas, and I'd bring it back to work culture, the idea that, work doesn't have to be this rigid, restrictive thing. I mean, my whole thing around desuckifying work, I'll always say it, is like we should be having more fun at work, more play at work. If you look at my website or listen to this podcast, there's cat sounds and there's all this stuff, and I've got cats on my web. There's a reason for that. I'm not doing it because I don't take this seriously. I'm doing it because that's a more fully integrated version of the world I want to embody for people, which is, I think, this ridiculous dignity that we can own all sides of ourselves, and there's room for that in the workplace. And I would argue, you've worked in creative spaces too. If that's one of the bigger areas that humans can really bring value in our work, especially in an age of AI where that can handle a lot of the sort of day-to-day minutia, well, then we need more of that. We need more ridiculous dignity in the workplace so that we can show up and actually be creative, inventive, all that kind of stuff,
Absolutely.
No. So I know I've been asking you a bunch of questions. I'd love to give you a chance to ask a question to our audience.
Dear audience.
I love it.
So I'm super curious about, because I'm trying to find this in myself, and I would like to know from other people of what's the best way for you to be seen and valued. I remember talking to my children when they were small, that at the end of the day, it's all about being seen, appreciated, and valued. Maybe. So at least seen, at least valued, and then maybe appreciated. And so, but we also recognize that we're not all the same way. So if we can be clear about, this is the way that I feel seen, valued, and appreciated, then it would be easier for the rest of us to help others. Yeah.
It's such a good baseline question, meaning I think about this again in the workplace. Like, if that was just a standard question when you're onboarding a new person, how do you want to be seen, valued, appreciated? Obviously it tells you something about the place, but it's also becomes a norm. Like, okay, we're trying to encourage people to be seen, valued, and appreciated. And oh, by the way, that may encourage you to be curious about your coworkers and asking them that question. So yeah, I'd love to see what people say about that one. And it
for sure
sort of connects to my next question, which is, if you could wave a magic wand and fully desuckify the world of work, what does that world look like?
I would blow it instead of suck it.
Excellent.
There's an easy answer to it, which is just let's feel. Let's just feel.
Yeah.
And we acknowledge feelings, like we've been talking about. And but then you have that sort of, which we also have touched upon, is that maybe the idea of easy fixes and shortcuts being effective and sort of reaching an end state. So, for example, the difference between trying to solve a problem or trying to absolve a problem. So we usually try to solve problems just to solve it. That doesn't make the problem go away. It's just solve it. But rather, what do we do if we want to make the problem go away and absolve it, resolve it?
Yeah.
So that would be a magic wand result that we actually could try to address, making the problems go away rather than just perpetuating them, which we often do.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point you bring up, which is the magic wand framing almost can keep us stuck in a place of believing that there is a
magic wand,
final space we get to, as opposed to just, showing up and being open to creating a world that's more like what we want it to be, and to just bring
There's
that.
so much to be said about that idea. I remember something about, for example, the idea of sustainability, which I find counterproductive, in the sense that we want to achieve sustainability. We want the world to continue to exist. It would be nice.
Yeah.
And but it's sort of portrayed often as a thing we do and solve it forever. And it needs a fix. The world needs a fix.
Yeah.
Or a magic one. And then rather than, if we switch that around and see it as sustainability is actually usually a dilemma, choosing between one thing over another. How do we prioritize? If we use this, we'll hurt them, or if we use that, it will hurt those. That kind of discussion is what we need to have.
Yeah. Much more real, I would say.
Much more real.
And I mean, I think what I hear underneath that is, every choice in life, whether you're talking about, saving the planet or creating a better work culture, there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
There's always going to be trade-offs, and to be thoughtful about them, to bring our emotions into them and allow them to tell us some things about what really matters to us, and then making choices and being okay with those choices that day, and then seeing what the world serves up the next day and doing it again.
And be prepared for that.
Yeah.
And that's the capacity development.
Yeah.
It's not a problem solution.
Exactly.
Is it a capacity to show up every day and be there to address the issues as best as we can?
Yeah, I love that word, capacity. I feel like we've all had some hits to our capacity in this sort of modern world of always on, always slinging mud at each other. We're in that protective state, as opposed to saying, how do we show up in the world and have the capacity to deal with whatever it gives us? Yeah. Well, speaking of fun, like we were just a few minutes ago, I like to have fun, as I mentioned, with some sounds on this show. You'll hear cat sounds and other things. And I always want to give the guest a chance to add to that collection of sounds. Do you have a sound you're up for making?
I certainly do. I actually, but I always change my mind, but for some reason. But we have to feel what's right in the moment, right?
Absolutely.
But what is two things. Often what is so much needed in the world is it's a deep breath and a sort of that increases the capacity to deal with things together in a slightly better way. Hopefully.
Yeah. Sort of remarkable, like the power of that sigh. Like if I was being measured, I guarantee my blood pressure went down a few points.
Yeah.
Just hearing you do it. And then if I do it, it has that physiological effect as well. But it's sort of remarkable. Yeah, I love that sound.
We also need not just that, because that is Marcus Aurelius. That is
right.
We need it, but it's containment. But we also need the ridiculous dignity of the giggle.
I love that. I love that. You got a nice high pitch that you can get to with your giggle. I think there's something I notice when the containment is fully released and I laugh at something, my laugh goes into that higher pitch. Yeah.
Indeed.
It's like I'm no longer constrained by, the I need to be a man and laugh deeply, and just like it just releases, and it's all in that higher register. Yeah. I love that. Both of those are wonderful. And with that, I'll just ask, how can people track you down online, learn more about the work you're doing, the stuff you're writing about, your thoughts on the world, all of it?
Well, bergvalls.com is a good starting spot. Sort of that's where I put the book. Well, anyone is just welcome to reach out, and on LinkedIn or Substack is where I put a lot of text and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, not least, escape with a z.se.
Oh, I love it. I love
the
it.
Escape Adventures.
Oh, that's awesome. I really think that sounds awesome. I hope it continues to build for you. I want to just add a little note of, your Substack is wonderful. Your writing is really engaging and thoughtful and thought-provoking. And I think that's a wonderful gift that you give to the world. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Well, Jonas, thank you for coming on the show. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Jonas for bringing a provocative look at emotions at work to the show. You can follow Jonas on LinkedIn and check out his site at bergvalls.com. You need to read his Substack too. It's awesome. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to explore what a more human work culture could look like, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone.